How's it going, everybody? Travis from Frostbind Gaming here, and I'm sure you guys have noticed that there are two champs on here. This is going to be a double budget challenge video, and for the foreseeable future, that's going to basically be how we do things here. I will dig into that later. For right now, let's just get right into the video. So, this is week 2 of our budget challenge, and I will be covering both Dalton's and my own notes from locals and changes that we're going to be making. Dalton's a busy guy. He's got a lot going on. It's just easier for him to write footnotes for me sometimes and to just kind of get these videos cranked out on time without having to figure out crazy schedules. So digging into what Dalton had to say here for week 2, he purchased a second starter deck and he spent a couple dollars on bulk singles, and from that he ended up following his current plan of removing the Umbra stuff from the deck to focus on a more on a lower end strategy with things, and I think he's focusing on these on the attack cards a lot. So he obviously cut more of the Umbra package out, and then he added in some of the attacks from the DTR set that were common uncommon, and just overall leaning more into that strat as a whole. If I recall correctly, he has about $3 in total in his bank at the end of this week, and that will go towards things later on in the month. Moving on to what I've got going on with Diana, I too also bought a second starter deck to round out my playsets of things, and I made a few adjustments to the deck prior to locals. I wasn't too thrilled with them, so I re-looked it again before putting this video out to kind of round out where I'm at for week 2. So I spent the 15 on another starter deck, and then I spent $3 on singles, which were primarily a playset of Bullfrog, a playset of Etheric Reforging, and a playset of Tactical Retreat, which for those of you who play is a Ranger's version of Song of Frost. And then for those of you that don't know what Song of Frost is, it's a card that ends the combat step and allows for a lot of interesting interactions to happen if people try to play multiple cards during that combat step. And it's also just, it makes your champion distant, it gives it float, it has floating. It's just an all-around good card for Water Diana, so I absolutely had to pick up a playset of that card. And it's only an uncommon, so you'll find it in your bulk pins. And the rest of it was just adjusting things from the starter deck, getting a couple copies of cards that I needed a 4th copy of, such as the Undercurrent Vantage and the other Astra Attack. So, and I cut out cards that really weren't doing much in there, like the Astra Negate that was in there that puts a card into their memory, and just cutting out the fluff basically and adding just more consistent strategies to things. Etheric Reforging was something I added after locals. I think it's a fantastic card to have because it lets you pull something out of a graveyard and banish it, and then it charges, and it's a 2 cost, so it kind of checks all the boxes for cards you want to try to be using with Diana. So that about covers that for our week 2 deck changes. We'll move on to our tournament report. And I believe, yeah, mine's up first here. So I had kind of a rough day at locals yesterday, not gonna lie. For round 1, I went up against Slimes, and both games went late into the game, but Slimes just has so many things that you have to go through, like between the taunts, the intercepts, and then you've got Covenant of Thorns you have to deal with, and it just didn't end well for me either game. I wasn't fast enough to get to that point where I could push through for a bunch of damage. And inevitably I just got storm slimed at the end of both of those games. So down the line, I'm hoping to find ways to kind of deal with some of this stuff, like the Covenant of Thorns, and taunts and intercepts are handled pretty easily with certain cards in the deck, but I do need other cards to kind of help me get past cards like Covenant of Thorns that will just kind of eat an entire attack from me. So round 2 I played up against Merlin. I took 1 game off of that because I had loaded up a bow with a bunch of Astra shots and kind of got off quickly. The other 2 games, not so much. I had done a lot of damage, but Merlin was able to push through and was able to establish a Majestic Spirit, and it just kind of went downhill from there. So once again, as things get added to the deck, certain things will change for me. Right now, the lack of having dungeon guides kind of slows me down a bit because I'm forced to just level up at a normal pace. I can't skip right from 2 to 3 if I needed to get a quicker shot off. So down the line, we'll eventually get these cards that we need to make the deck a bit quicker, but for now it is what it is. And then round 3 I had the bye. Nothing to say there. It's a bye, it's a free win. And at the end of the day, the deck worked pretty well. I wasn't too disappointed with the way it performed, especially for it just kind of being 2 starter decks and a couple, bulk cards thrown in there. Nothing crazy, but I do look forward to finding some more pieces that will kind of flesh out the deck a little bit better here. And I'll touch on that at the end of the video, but we do have a couple rule changes we're making to the budget challenge just due to the way things are unfolding for us at our locals. And I'll cover that there. So we're going to move on to Dalton's tournament report here. So Dalton did a lot better than I did. I think I ended up 7th at the end of the day, which kind of baffles me on that. I guess it was due to tiebreakers, or I don't know. But round 1, he had the bye, so he just kind of waited around at round 1. Round 2, he went up against Water CL and 2-0'd them, which is impressive. And round 3, he went up against what I say? I said Wind CL. I said Water CL. Water Diana. My apologies. And round 3, he went up against Wind Diana and lost 1-2 to that. So at the end of the day, he had noted to me that he ended up getting 4th, which is pretty impressive for that first local. And he said he was happy with the way that the deck functioned. He was able to play the cards that he wanted to play and get his effects off. But the one thing he said that he was going to be looking into is he wasn't sure if he wanted to keep in the copies of Increasing Danger. He wasn't sure that if that's going to remain in the deck for very much longer. He wants to test it a little bit more, but he said it really wasn't doing much for him, and that might be something that he'll change down the line. But overall, he said he was impressed with the way that the deck performed at the local, and happy for him. So getting fourth is pretty solid for that first local. We will move on to some rule changes that we have for the challenge, and just a couple things to touch on here. First rule is going to be about the bulk. So when we first made the challenge, we had set the bulk to be like commons and uncommons, but there are a good amount of rares that we could use, especially from this current set, that are less than $1 or $1 or less. So, and there's another reason for this, which I'll touch on after this, but we're gonna change that rule to allow rares as well, as long as they're $1 or less, just to add into that bulk budget, and it'll just make things overall easier to kind of flesh out certain things in the deck and give us a wider card pool to use. So to further touch on that, we have product issues at our local right now, where we don't have any boxes of the current set, so we're not able to just end the week by buying a couple packs or something to try to flesh out our decks that way. And as of this past local, we also did not have the DTR black packs that you get for attending locals, so that didn't really help us push our goal any either. So we figured the change to the bulk rule was a good thing, and then we're gonna have to keep an eye on things in the near future, and have to figure out how we're gonna handle getting a hold of packs and things. I'm hoping our local can secure some more boxes, and that won't be a problem. But if it is, we might have to make some slight changes to things, or just go over how we're gonna fix that problem later on down the line. So I think that's about it as far as this week's budget challenge goes. Thank you all for joining and watching. We really appreciate all the support we've gotten so far. We've gotten a decent bit of subscribers in the first week, and we can't thank you enough for that. We really appreciate it, and I really hope to see that number grow so that we can start. I think it was 50 subscribers. We can start doing live streams and things. So that's something to look into for the future. But as always, if you like the video, drop us a like, leave us a comment with your thoughts and opinions. And as always, subscribe if you want to support us and you want to see more content from us. That should be about it for this week's budget challenge, and we will see you guys on the next one.